Great.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. Today we have an eminent speaker with us, Mr. Lokesh. He is basically a CA and he is having about a decade of experience helping businesses in their finances. He is having an advanced diploma in management accounting from SEMA, UK. And he is a passionate professor and a member of career counseling program of ICAI for CA students, where he mentors underprivileged students in sailing through the chartered accountancy courses. That's wonderful. He has been recently elected as the board treasurer of PCA India, and he is a co-opted member of Standards on Accounting for SIRC of Institutes of Chartered Accountants of India. He has been successful in helping businesses come out of business losses smoothly. His effective understanding of organizations and their structure helps him in coming out with quick customized solutions. He is on a mission to help redesigning businesses structures to maximize profits. So we welcome Lokesh on this platform. Basically, every Saturday people used to discuss about green practices, CSR, sustainability, and different issues. It is a effort of like Center of Excellence for Vasundhara Foundation. So over to you. We are looking forward to take this session ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunita, for this warm introduction. Yeah, it gives me immense pleasure in addressing this audience. And yeah, green finance, sustainability reporting is something that is picking up lately. So I have decided this entire presentation as the past, the present, and the future. So without much ado, let me start sharing my PPT.
Yeah, sure.
Green finance, ESG, and its reporting. So when you start, we always start with what happened in the past, right? So we go with the past. If you go ahead with the past, you basically sense that something is wrong with this capitalism and all, right? So that seed was dropped in through this Das Kapital book by Mr. Karl Marx. And then slowly people started recognizing the issues in capitalism. And then we had this book, Small is Beautiful, by E.F. Shoemaker. It's a wonderful book. I urge that you all read this book. It says about what the author calls as Buddhist economics. Yeah, big is beautiful, big is great, but what is beautiful is sustainable growth. In fact, that's the topic of the day, sustainable growth. So this is something that in 1973 itself we had. And then you might be aware of this. I have this one small clipping of inconvenient truth. I just wanted to play. I don't know.
If you look at the 10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. And the hottest of all was 2005. Scientific consensus is that we are causing global warming. I used to be the next president of the United States. This is Patagonia 75 years ago and the same glacier today. This is Mount Kilimanjaro 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro. this is really not a political issue so much as a moral issue. Temperature increases are taking place all over the world, and that's causing stronger storms. In the history of this country, this morning, Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans. Is it possible that we should prepare against other threats besides terrorists?
From Paramount Classics comes a film that has shocked audiences everywhere they've seen it.
The Arctic is experiencing faster melting. If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet. This is what would happen in Florida. Around Shanghai, home to 40 million people. The area around Calcutta, 60 million. Here's Manhattan. The World Trade Center Memorial would be underwater. Think of the impact of a couple 100,000 refugees, and then imagine 100 million. We have to act together to solve this global crisis.
So because of this movie, we had global awareness about climate change, I would say. And then the very famous Sustainable Development Goals came in. And then one of the items was climate action, and to ensure a growth where the world was also protected. This is something that was beautifully brought out in 2014. We all know that. And then once again, people had to go back. They never listened, right? So they went back, and then once again, another movie had to be made because of the distortions about this particular movie.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, we need some global warming. It's freezing.
The most criticized scene in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was showing that the combination of sea level rise and storm surge would flood the 9/11 memorial site. And people said, what a terrible exaggeration.
Hurricane Sally slammed into New York City last night, flooding the World Trade Center site.
Storms get stronger and more destructive. Watch the water splash off the city. This is global warming.
I'm so scared.
Despair can be paralyzing, but this to me is the most exciting new development. We're seeing a tremendous amount of positive change. The basis is there, but it's still not enough.
This crunch time at the climate change conference in Paris. Still some really tough negotiations going on.
What would it take to shift to renewables? I'm talking about breaking the impasse. Virtually every nation in the entire world agreed to get to zero greenhouse emissions. It is unprecedented.
It's time to put America first. That includes a promise to cancel billions in climate change spending. Our plan will end the EPA.
The next generation would be justified in looking back at us and asking, what were you thinking? Couldn't you hear what the scientists were saying? Couldn't you hear what Mother Nature was screaming at you? This movement is in the tradition of every great movement that has advanced humankind.
We're not going to recognize it. We don't want to discuss it.
It is right to save humanity. It is wrong to pollute this earth. It is right to give hope to the future generation. Don't let.
So this actually led to widespread awareness, and of course, like every country tries to safeguard itself from this environmental loss. US had this law which is being repealed. So global warming report was made in 2018, and the target is that even though the projected warming is for 2.7 degrees Celsius, we want it to limit to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And of course, there are top 10 countries that contribute 68%. And if you are wondering, India is whether in the last or first, yes, it is in the top 3 position, 3rd position. So now with this, here is where we enter the present scenario. So when we enter the present scenario, what is happening right now? So as we saw in the video, several environmental rules have been reversed at the US level, and which means that new laws have to be brought in. So we had 2021 COP26, we call Paris Climate Agreement. Of course, this was held in the recent November 21. And of course, the idea, if you see, it's quite lesser than what it was started. Limit the global average temperature increase to less than 2 degrees centigrade plus achieve net zero emissions. It's not that they will totally eliminate emissions, carbon, greenhouse gas emissions at all. They are saying net zero emissions. They are not saying eliminate carbon emissions totally. We don't want greenhouse gas like that. They're not saying that. And one of the items is that third point, which is why we are here. Align financial flows in the world with these objectives. I read the particular statistics which says that the UN, market funds which are actually investing now have started their shift towards ESG compliant companies, and these will be by 2025 around 50% of the funds will be only ESG compliant companies, which means that if you are a company, this is the right time to enter into ESG and to start your journey towards ESG. And of course, there is always these companies which try to, manipulate the laws. You say that this is the law, we will try and change it somehow. For example, when Coke says 15% less plastic bottle, what do they essentially mean is, hey, we are eco-friendly because we are using only less than 15% less as compared to your previous water bottle structure. So that previous water bottle structure also had plastic. The new water bottle also has plastic. You are made to believe that it is an eco-friendly option, but in reality, it is not eco-friendly. This is what we call technically greenwashing. So this greenwashing is that if at all you are told that, okay, we are environment friendly product, you will go and buy that product over other product. So now the companies know that environmental friendly products are having good market. They have started looking at this as a marketing opportunity rather than actually becoming environmentally compliant company, environmental safe company. They are basically doing the same old thing now, old wine in the new bottle. Only thing is that they are saying that we are green, we are environmentally safe, and they adopt to methods where they simply use methods which are psychological in nature, like preparing the entire packaging in green color and saying that it is ecological product. There are several ways by which they are doing this, and of course people are smart. They have understood that, okay, greenwashing is happening, and then anti-greenwash protests are happening around the world. So which means that companies have to budge. So they have to show that they are actually taking some actions. So now enter ESG. In India, of the Nifty 50 companies, 40% are A category risk companies. So A category risk means like high risk. And of course, only few entities are rated BBB category, which means like they have good track of risk management, but there is no framework which says that they will continue to be ESG compliant, which means that there needs to be some regulations to control all this. So that is why in 2021, SEBI came up with a consultation paper wherein what was mandated was business responsibility and sustainability report. Earlier we had business responsibility report only. Now we have business responsibility and sustainability report. And there are also environmental rating providers proposed by SEBI. So what is this and how is this applicable? So it's applicable to the top 1,000 listed companies. Of course, by market capitalization, you have to go. And they should report how they are following environmentally compliant manufacture production. And of course, it will be part of annual report only from the next financial year. Right now, it is voluntary in nature. In this year's annual report, which you will get from various companies, starting this month onwards, you will be getting lots of annual reports. You will start to see one of the very first business responsibility and sustainability reports. And these will be, since they are voluntary in nature, only the very top companies will be adopting it. And there are certain 9 principles which they speak about. I would like to have a another PDF shared where the detailed discussion about this framework can happen. Yeah. So you are looking at overview of the proposed framework. So this framework is like bringing in 2 new concepts. One is the accredited ERP, so environment rating providers. So these providers have to follow set of obligations, and also the BRSR report has a format. We'll discuss about that in a bit. And of course, mutual funds and alternative investment funds, they will invest now based on this risk rating which the ERPs provide to the companies. What is this risk rating, sir? You have been aware of CRISIL rating, CRA rating. You know the CIBIL score that you know. So A++, B, C. So like that, we have ratings for credit rating. Similarly, we have ratings for ESG compliance. So these will be carried out by providers who will be having a certain methodology to evaluate. So who can do right now? Right now, only the existing credit rating agencies, CRAs, and research analysts. But of course, not everybody can become ERP. There are certain restrictions here as well. So the minimum net worth should be 10 crore. 10 crore is the minimum net worth that they should be having. And of course, some of the requirements are like they should have adequate infrastructure and manpower for carrying out this. And of course, they have to renew every 2 years. And SEBI will review the conditions that are being followed every year. Okay, so there are 2 kinds of ratings proposed. One is impact rating, another is ESG financial risk rating or corporate risk ratings. So these 2 ratings have their own methodology that they have to follow. So here, SEBI is not proposing any rating like AA, BBC, like they are not proposing. They are saying, let the rating providers themselves decide. Let them decide on the ratings. They themselves will tell, okay, A means risk, B means okay, BB means low risk, like that. They will give the risk rating, and they will also show how these symbols and definitions are being arrived at. What is the methodology adopted in their website? It should be clearly mentioned. So type of ESG product and rating methodology on website and reports. So they should mention that. And sector wise, they have to give. And then every year they have to report what is the methodology they have adopted and what all resources they have used. Because resources sometimes if you provide the wrong input and say, okay, this is a company which is complaint on ESG and they go ahead and take that wrong input, obviously they will come to the wrong conclusion. So what are the resources that they have used? And of course, they say at the same time, they are saying sectoral classification, and they are also saying rating to be sector agnostic. So like it's a anomaly here, but then ERP providers will have to see how they can do this. And they also have to cross-reference these indexes based on the methodology. And of course, they will say caution statement like this is not a recommendation to buy, sell or hold or any security. So it's only for informational purpose, like that. They will have a caution rating. And they should follow a consistent process. And of course, they should not be related parties. They should not be people who are closely related to the entities. So if they are related parties, there is a conflict of interest clause that will get activated. And once there is a conflict of interest clause, that particular ESG rating should be carried out by some other ERP than this ERP. So there is a conflict of interest. And like every audit profession, they also should be having independence. So they have to manage their own conflict of interest. And based on this, even ICAI has come up with Sustainability Reporting Maturity Model 1.0. They are also planning to come up with SRMM 2.0 in the future. So they have to disclose conflict of interest. And of course, they are saying subscriber pay model or issuer pay model, which is something which is going to happen in the future. Normally, the issuer pay model is dominant, but they are saying subscriber pay. They've also asked whether it is appropriate or not. So soon they will have to decide and come out on this. So coming back to our PPT. So this is the basic disclosure that will be made. So the general disclosure, what is the product they are doing, who are the subsidiaries, what is the CSR that they have been doing, and transparency and disclosure compliances, whatever is the general norms they will do. And then they will have to discuss the process in detail, how they are actually environmentally safe entity. Like that, they will have to do one detailed process definition, and then they have to mention who is taking care of this BRSR and how this is being managed in the governance of this BRSR and ESG. And of course, you have to report in the third section KPIs, key performance indicators about the NGRBC principles which we have. And globally, if you see, this is very nascent in our country. Right now, since it is not mandatory, this is what we have. In fact, what we are about to see in the future, like in this month only, listed companies will come up with this BRSR report. Then only we will also be aware about, okay, this is how they are reporting and this is how it is going to be done. And based on that, many new entities which will be basically interested in becoming BRSR compliant and therefore, being a viable option for investors, will select and opt for BRSR. And right now it is voluntary. Next year it is mandatory. And later on, we will be having voluntary adoption by entities which are, not listed companies. For unlisted companies, it is totally, not mandatory, and they can select whether to adopt it or not. So these are the various frameworks that we have right now. There are several frameworks. So these are global frameworks which basically our Indian government can take a look at it, and then they can also get inspired by it. Right now, this is one basic requirement of ESG reporting worldwide, not yet prevalent in India. Probably you can take a copy of, take a screenshot of this if you want more ideas about this, like environmental, social, and governance. They have, segregated each pillar, and they have also listed what all should be discussed. More or less, business report, business responsibility and sustainability report will have these kind of contents in the report. This is what I'm expecting. Let's wait and see. So with that, my formal session comes to an end, and I would like to throw up the floor for questions.
Lokesh, I must say, wonderful PPT and information you have shared with us. Some new things we got from your PPT, right? So ESG and other things, as you discussed, that so do you think that all companies are implementing it with sincerity, those whosoever is indexed in BSc?
Yeah, the question is that it's always at the option of the company that is implementing it. In fact, it's voluntary in nature for this financial year, and 2023 also it's voluntary, and top 1,000 companies only they have to do this. And Reliance has already done that. They have offloaded their hydrocarbon business to one separate entity, so that the other entities from Reliance Industries, this is offloaded. So the other entities will remain ESG compliant. That hydrocarbon, they know that anyhow it is not going to be ESG compliant. So their businesses will hive off these industries where the pollution happens. Those companies will be formed as a separate entity. I don't see that this will have an immediate impact.
Yes, but if everybody is just talking about sustainable development goals, corporate social responsibility, so companies are now more concerned about these issues. They are addressing it. They are just sharing this information with their stakeholders that we are eco-friendly, we are doing these green practices. So this way things are just going on. So what are your suggestions that how government can make it so that every corporate house must opt these kind of things for the betterment of the society and for sustainable practices?
Yeah, for me, that the one thing is that we are going at such a slow pace that we have not catched up with the other government rating norms. Like you saw, there are several ratings right now in US. In India, we are only issuing a consulting paper now only, and then that also is voluntary. Slowly, we will become mandatory. And then only we will make it mandatory to everybody. So till the time it reaches the smallest company, it will take lots of time in India. And by that time, 2025 will come, and the US companies would have already switched half of their investments to ESG compliant entities. And that is when people will realize, oh wow, ESG entities are like really risk-free. See, it's not about profitability alone. It's about risk-free profitability. In fact, if you look at the ESG compliant companies, they are having a lesser risk of getting into compliance related issues. And they will not be having the penalty which other entities can easily get into, and because of which they have a comparative advantage. This comparative advantage will only drive companies towards ESG rather than companies being pushed into ESG. So I think it will happen slowly. Things are changing. Let's hope good things also happen.
Yes. Yeah. So Lokesh, let me introduce you with Dr. Mona. Hello, hi. Are you there, Dr. Mona? She might be traveling. She is also with us and in advisory board member as director of COE. So are you with us right now?
Yeah, Dr. Sunita, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Lokesh and all the other members. It was a very insightful session, a lot to learn more, especially with the kind of learning that is required, whether we look at it from relearning the CSR framework, because it is ultimately broadening the CSR perspective from business towards a profit to business towards a purpose. And that is where the alignment with sustainable development goals as well as the ESG framework. My question, Lokesh Raj, there's a lot to learn and we are trying to acclimatize ourselves as much as possible. The compliances around ESG, and this is a new subject for me as well. I want to understand what, because when we say an ESG compliant company or ratings are good in terms of, ESG rating in AAA, if you look at the MCSI score, or maybe a relatively poor compliant ESG company, what are some of the challenges you see so far as the social pillar is concerned? Because being a social worker and having concern from the human aspect, when we are very closely working, an employee who's within the premises is known as an employee. As soon as he moves out of the gate of a company, he's part of the community. So where do you stop? Like, you would have an internal driven CSR approach, taking care of the human rights, workers' issues, safeties, this and that. And the moment it becomes a community, you can just wash your hands, whether it is the environmental or whether it's the society. So I would like you to, just focus on some of the challenges, particularly in terms of human rights at workplace, business and human rights compliance, the risk that is particularly there in terms of forced labor, though the incidences may be very few. But when we talk of environmental and this governance issues, they are by and large within the control of the corporates, can be easily managed with the proper strategies. But so far as the social pillar is concerned, it is more to do with the company's own philosophy, the company's core DNA in terms of their entire approach towards, plowing back the profit that is earned towards the community, in the words and principles of Mahatma Gandhi. And in that, how do you see the companies faring on the social aspects as well as the social and not the governance is more within the company. So particularly in terms of the, human aspect and ensuring that they have a focus both on the internal as well as the external communities. Like, I just want to understand your observations with reference to the ESG compliance. Can you focus the radar on the social aspect of it?
Yeah. So thanks, Mona. That's a wonderful question, actually. So we have this social aspect in India governed by CSR, like you already know. So CSR requirements, even though we say more than 5 crore, you have to contribute 2% of profits, everything, companies get to have this nice idea of having their own internal entity which takes care of their employees' welfare through the CSR. So basically, you have Tata have its own trusts that basically invest the money in their own employees' welfare, and it is also an allowed expenditure, except for income tax. CSR, it's not allowed, but inside that they are allowing it. So I see that companies are basically washing off their hands with outsourcing the CSR. And recently even they also insisted that all CSR entities must register onto the portal, and that portal itself has some issues right now. I saw that some people were trying to register under the Aadhaar and PAN link in the last month. That created certain issues, and it's like some namke vaste, I would say, that is happening. And at the same time, there are certain good companies which are basically doing some great job with their CSR work. And I believe that a lot has to be done, particularly human rights, like you rightly said, Dr. Ma. And once I believe this is achieved by us, so we will become a wonderful society where fellow humans are cared as well as the profits.
Yeah, Dr. Lokesh, I want to make a comment here.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Like, I'm from a farmer background and heavy chemicals. See, like what you said is absolutely right. Going for ESG and other things. Okay, having a risk-free profitability, what you call target and all that. But if you really look at it now, if you look at the pharma and the chemical industries in India, they are major culprits. Okay, if you look at climatic disasters, these guys, even I am one of those included, we are actually major culprits. when we talk about CSR, yes, we do our bit on CSR. We try to showcase that we are following ESG, but then the ground reality would be different. What are you pumping into the ground is not visible to you.
Yeah.
That's a major concern because you're polluting the groundwater. And the chemicals that come off from heavy chemicals is something which we just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, we talk about this, but then what you have pointed out is is very important. But this needs to get across to the society at large. Like you said, the employees, like they can, like Dr. Monar very rightly said, employees could get out of the company and wash their hands off because they're part of the community, right? But then who will enlighten the employees? That's the what you call responsibility of the organization.
Yeah.
Right? Now see, our employees would get out of the company and stink like dead rats. Right? Now they were not able to understand why. People won't sit with them in the buses or even in taxis, and their skin nothing would touch them. See, the employees themselves were getting impacted. So then you can very well imagine the course of events. It's very nice, like we have these things there. I've been a part of this order in the company, rolling it out, code of conduct and whatnot. Okay, we should be a responsible citizen and we